Well, hello. Today we're fortunate to have the lovely Deborah Tavares with us, and most of you probably know who she is. She knows a lot. She has the website stopthecrime.net, and she fights tyranny relentlessly. Deborah?
Well, thank you for that nice introduction, Dr. Ed. I want to start out by holding this up and having everyone take a read of this, because this is absolutely our reality. And this is also on stopthecrime.net as well, so that you can take a look at it there. It says, and this is by former CIA Director William Casey in 1981, it says, "We'll know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American people believe is false." And that's where we've arrived. We're virtually in a virtual reality. When you look at page 12 and 13 of the NASA war document, and they talk about the technological ages of humankind, you go through the ages of evolution, and now a forced created evolution, a virtual reality of robotization, of the truth being the lies, and the lies being the truth. We're going to talk about many things, but I want to just let everyone know that's listening, what goes forward from here is going to rely upon your engagement. We can no longer consent by lack of education and trusting in a government system that is predatory and is set to consume everything that is good and decent. We are out of control. We do not have a representative government. People need to understand. You can go to stopthecrime.net. Everything on that website is a free download. I would urge everybody to read The Great American Adventure, Secrets of America by retired Judge Dale, and the companion book, The Matrix and the U.S. Constitution, as soon as possible. Then I would urge everybody to also read Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. It's a 44-page document. It is a collection of some of the most significant goals of the New World Order. It includes the U.S. Air Force. It includes Harvard University, the international bankers, and the Rockefeller Institute. Again, that is Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. So there are many, many documents on the website of stopthecrime.net. Under the source document link, we have documents that are military documents showing the purpose of weaponized weather warfare and also weaponized frequencies to subdue the enemy. It's important to understand we are the enemy. In 1933, when America's gold was stolen, and we were just coming out of a concocted war called the Great Depression, where our grandparents struggled to survive that intentional war upon the American people. It's important to understand that that was all intentional. It's also important to know that our history has been subverted and has been recreated and has been reinvented. We're living in a false reality. And what occurred in 1933, and of course before that as well, but I'm going to just start there because you can go to stopthecrime.net, to the USA link, USA Inc. link, and download what you're going to hear me talk about right now. Everything that I am talking about has resource backup documents, and it's imperative. We're in a battlefield, we're the enemy, and we must engage. And this is a peaceful engagement. We're not advocating guns because with the levels of technology that they have available now, our guns are mere little squirt guns, essentially. And I can tell you that some of the weapons that we talk about in the NASA war plan are chemical and biologicals. They have been using chemicals and biologicals. They've been conscripting insects to kill the population. This is a fingerprintless, this is a plausible deniability assault upon the global population. Now, getting back to 1933, what's important to understand is that from that time forward, we have been in an annual, extended, perpetual state of national emergency here in the United States. All of the government aspects go through the executive branch via executive order. I know many of you scratch your heads and you keep saying, how can the current president, it doesn't matter what political basis that president is, whether it is Democrat or Republican, how can they keep creating executive orders? Well, as long as we remain in a permanent state of national emergency, the Constitution has been abolished and everything goes directly through the executive branch via executive orders. Now, you can confirm this by looking at Senate Report 93549, again under the USA Inc. link on stopthecrime.net. Now, I've recently gone to a number of meetings here in Sonoma County. We're about an hour north of the Golden Gate Bridge. We're under heavy assault with climate action plans. These are global plans. They are a global template. And I would urge everyone to find this information on the Climate Action Plan link of stopthecrime.net. At this point, I want to say to any of you who cannot download these documents for free off of our websites, you can contact a printing company that we've made arrangements with. For just the cost of printing and postage, you can get any one of these documents that you hear me talk about. The phone number to contact is area code 707-586-9558. Once again, area code 707-586-9558. Now, this is an SOS YouTube recording. We're in an emergency, predatory, vicious takedown by a corporate system that does not acknowledge living beings, living animals, living anything. It is predatory. Corporations are a fiction. They are a dead legal fiction. And we are being absolutely run over by corporate statutes posing as laws and rules that we have been abiding by because they've been playing checkers and we've been playing chess. We were not educated to understand the corporate reality. And when you look at the Silent Weapons Quiet Wars document, you will see they've told us that the bookkeeper can be king as long as the bookkeeper can keep the methodology of the bookkeeping a secret from the population. So I would recommend you read Silent Weapons Quiet Wars, understand that the multiple methods in which they are destroying the human family, this is global, is a massive assault, full on bore now. Now, what do I mean by full on bore now? Of course, it's been incremental for many, many decades, but we know that the Star Wars system is set up for full surveillance. We know that the smart meter system is set up not only for surveillance and incarceration and monitoring and tracking, but dicing and slicing our DNA and causing illnesses and damage to our biological structures. At the top of stopthecrime.net on the scroll, I urge you to print off the symptoms list for Wi-Fi and for smart meter frequency assaults and what the autism, ADHD, children's designers' diseases, these are all environmentally created to benefit the profit bottom line of Big Pharma and the other corporations. Now, what do we have that we're being faced with right now in each of our communities? It's called the requirement to reduce your greenhouse gas emissions. We know that, of course, this is scientific and political fraud. There are over 31,000 American scientists and thousands of scientists worldwide that are saying we could reduce our greenhouse gas emissions 100% and it would not alter the weather. What are these plans really all about? These plans are a script, as if you will, for weaponized weather warfare and economic weaponization of the entire global structure. They tell us that if we do not reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, we're going to have increased sea level rising, we're going to have storms, fires, assaults from all types of horrific weather events. Now they control the weather. Go to toxicsky.org, take a look at the NASA documents there. NASA's involved, as well as the military and many other corporate global agencies worldwide. So for those of you that have not yet acknowledged or understand the weaponization of the weather and the extent in which they are controlling the weather, you need to understand this is a worldwide, deliberate, large-scale manipulation of the Earth's climate. And they have this capability, and they're doing it daily. Now, over our skies here, an hour north of the Golden Gate Bridge in Sonoma County, we see the weather being amplified every day. We seem to be a staging area for the storms that are being sent across the United States and literally wiping people out of towns, obliterating small rural towns, a disastrous targeting for political and for land grab and for chaos. The more chaos that can be created, the more fear that can be created, we will accept the illusion that we must all surrender to the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. Again, no amount of greenhouse gas emissions reduction will change the weather events. They tell us if we do not reduce the greenhouse gas emissions along with these amazing intentional weaponized weather events that they're saying are natural, they tell us too that we're going to suffer from all kinds of health problems, health-related problems. On page 9 of the San Diego Climate Action Plan, which you can see on stopthecrime.net under the Climate Action Plan link, you will see a chart, again with the weather events that are caused by our impact on the globe, and then the health events that will be caused as a result of the weaponized weather events. They tell us that we will have increased allergies. We will have depression. They talk about mental illness. They talk about airborne illnesses, waterborne illnesses, and again, mental illnesses. This is discussed in these climate action plans. They are creating a mental illness. In fact, I can recommend that you go to YouTube and you watch the YouTube psychology. Psychiatrics is a big business. I have that posted on the website so that you can look at that under the Climate Action Plan link. I don't know that I got the name of the YouTube correct, but I have it posted at the top of stopthecrime.net, the Climate Action Plan link. Understand, this is all being staged. We are literally lab rats in a laboratory. All the human population. We're being annihilated. We're being disappeared. They're taking homeless people off the streets. They're misinforming us with the census. We are not increasing in population. They are vanishing and disappearing many of us. The indigents and the other people in less or in impoverished areas are disappearing. The children and the people that are on the roads hitchhiking, they're disappearing. They're disappearing. Hundreds of thousands of children in the United States and globally are disappearing, not only for human sex trafficking and experimentation, but they're also harvesting organs. That's enormous big business. There are people being taken into hospitals and having their organs harvested. But I want to stay on the idea what you can put your fingers on in your town right now. And I did a recent YouTube video, It was an emergency town hall meeting. You can go to YouTube and type in "Who's Running America?" Or you can go to the homepage of stopthecrime.net and listen to that methodical presentation that we gave on why your cities are incorporated. They're doing business. They're all listed on Dun and Bradstreet. They do not serve you. You do not have public servants. You have public officials that are agents and employees of a corporate structure that is consuming us. Now, we must understand the enormity of what we face, and we must engage with not consenting on all levels that we can. This is a paper non-consent that we are advocating. What we have occurring now in our cities is the adoption of these climate action plans or energy action plans, or as they're also referred to, greenhouse gas emissions reduction requirements. So you can type this into your search engine with your town. Most likely, if your town has not yet adopted this requirement, they will. Certainly your states have. All the governors have taken the money and have initiated these plans. We have posted some of these grants that they've taken to further the plan adoptions in our cities. You need to understand, corporations run on paper. They run on grants, they run on contracts. We need to be asking for the grants, we need to be asking for the contracts. We have not, because we have not understood the system. We're going into meetings constantly. The meetings are run what they call the Delphi technique. The Delphi technique was invented by the Rand Corporation in the 60s. It is a corporate meeting style. It is global. In fact, engineers and scientists of all levels will come out of these meetings real. It's all being driven on predetermined outcomes to benefit the corporate structure. Again, take a look at the Matrix, the United States Constitution. Again, a free download on stopthecrime.net under the USAE link. And you will understand nothing is real. Our state and federal governments are not real. We have been betrayed, we have been misled, and we have been enslaved by lack of knowledge. The educational system is clearly an indoctrination system. I know for many of you that are looking at this YouTube, you're well aware of the Common Core curriculum. It's an international, a global curriculum. It's certainly sweeping into all the schools in the United States. Those that are opposing it are going to school boards, not realizing the school boards are incorporated. The school boards have taken the money. These programs are being advanced rapidly, despite the pushback against the reduced math and science curriculums in the Common Core curriculum. It's, again, a further dumbing down. We were all dumbed down. We have not known our history. I'm certain many of you really do believe that Columbus discovered America. Well, of course, that is not real. And there are many things that we have been deceived. I would refer you to the NASA War document to understand, again, on page 12 and 13. We're now in a phase of virtual reality where humans are being replaced by machinery. This is all part of the transhumanism agenda that we'll get into in a moment, but we're under mass mind control already. And why is that? Well, we have been literally hit with so many levels of frequencies and backdoor Trojan horses in our appliances and in our television sets, subliminal messaging in print material for decades. Again, I refer you to the scroll at the top of stopthecrime.net. We have a full-page flyer. We talk about what happened in the 90s with the takeover of all of the print material, more of the subliminal messaging, and how this has literally caused global mind control. In the Silent Weapons document, we are told they want to control the bankers. and those rich men of the earth that they're referred to in the Iron Mountain report, they want to control all energy on the face of the planet. We are energy. They want to control our minds. And you will see that we have an Aquarius operations briefing on the homepage of stopthecrime.net. The Aquarius operations was a secret society and is a secret society that was tasked with creating mind control. It's a 50-page document. The last page of that document shows cell phone towers. So when you go on to antennasearch.com, antennasearch.com, and you type in your address, you can find not only a radius map, generally a 4-mile radius map, of the cell phone towers, a separate map for the cell phone towers, and a separate radius map for the antennas. And you can type in any address you'd like, your home, your business, your schools, what have you. You will see that these cell phone towers have been systematically deployed globally for the mind control apparatus and the enslavement and incarceration of the global population with frequencies. We do not see them, we cannot touch them, but they are interfacing with the frequencies because we're frequencies. We're frequencies and matter, and these frequencies are overriding our computers in our brains. This is what quantum computing and artificial intelligence is all about. We have a link on Stop the Crime called No More Humans. I would encourage everyone spend some time there. Go to the year 2045.com. That's 2045.com. Understand the intentions of the elimination and replacement of the human population as we have known it now. And along the way, we have met many people that have been subjected to direct targeting with electromagnetic frequencies by the corporate agencies imposing themselves as governments. We do not have representation at all. We are completely being consumed by a corporate structure, and we must not consent. I'm talking about the year 2045.com. I would recommend that everyone go to stopthecrime.net, click on the No More Human link. Understand the intended, created evolution of mankind that those with the money and the methodologies are attempting to do. Now, we must learn how our reality is really coming to pass under the plans that they have for us. They've told us in the Silent Weapons Quiet Wars document that they would leech off of us until such time they were able to separate from us when they had enough power, and then they would devour us. And I want to talk about an FBI director quote from J. Edgar Hoover. This quote is on stopthecrime.net, and I would urge you to pass it around, send it out on YouTube, and get this out to everyone you know. Now, I'm going to read it to you. This is FBI Director's warning. The individual is handicapped by coming face to face with a conspiracy so monstrous he cannot believe it exists. The American mind simply has not come to the realization of the evil which has been introduced into our midst. It rejects even the assumption that human creatures could espouse a philosophy which must ultimately destroy all that is good and decent. And again, this is former FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover. This is in 1956. So it's important to understand the levels of technologies that have been waged against us and that have built up to the point where we're a police state now. Another extremely important document, a free download on stopthecrime.net, would be the report from Iron Mountain. I would recommend you download it and you read it. This will talk about the intentions of continuing the wars globally, which is why we have unconstitutional wars, as people call it, Well, we don't have a constitution. It's important to understand that. That's why I've recommended you read The Great American Adventure, Secrets of America, but also read the Iron Mountain Report, because Kennedy warned us only 10 days before he was assassinated that there was a monolithic, ruthless conspiracy set to conscript every aspect of our lives, politically, scientifically, military, civil, every aspect of our lives. That has come to pass. Now it's up to us to become educated. It's up to us to understand so that we can create as safe a communities as we're able to in this time of massive, massive betrayal. So, what do? Well, you must not consent. And you can again go to stopthecrime.net. We have examples of forms that we've created. Go to the Climate Action Plan link, print off the question enforcement in your city, knocking on your door, wanting to assess whether your home is sustainable or not. They're going to measure whether you have air intrusion coming in through your windows, whether you need weather stripping under your doors. You may need added insulation in your roofs or your walls or your floors. You also will be required to replace all of your inefficient appliances to all appliances that are RFID chipped Energy Star electric appliances. Now, why did I say electric? Because Energy Star does not manufacture gas appliances. They are limiting our ability to access resources. The fewer options that they give us, the more control that they have. So in order to prevent the assessment of your home, which is going to be put on a massive data bank, your house is going to be assessed on a scorecard from 1 to 10, 1 being inefficient and 10 being efficient. And you will be required to upgrade your homes to reduce your greenhouse gas emissions when your homes are inefficient. Now, they will have loans for you. Here in Sonoma County, you can take out a loan and you can collateralize that against your home to purchase all of the efficient appliances and to create the efficiency levels within your home. Very important to understand, these are in the plans, these are in the climate action plans. These are global. These have hit the United States. They're in every single town, everywhere. They're increasing revenue. They're making it more and more difficult for people to own single-family homes. Why? Because they're stealing the land. I would urge all of you to go onto YouTube and watch a video entitled Torn from the Land. That's Torn from the Land by Lindsay Williams. And you will understand how the bankers influenced the land grabs in the 40s and 30s and 50s from the U.S. farms and farmers and ranchers. This is happening now. We recently went to the Bundy Ranch. We know that Clark County, where the Bundy Ranch is located, has a climate action plan. When you have an approved climate action plan, which we all do basically now, if you are outside of your city growth boundary, in other words, you can go to your building department and you can get a layout of what the urban growth boundary looks like, where the boundaries are. You can determine whether you are in that urban growth boundary within the city limits, so to speak, or outside of the city limits. If you are outside of the city limits, you are considered sprawl and unsustainable. And those are the properties that are under massive assault now. Here in Northern California and in other states that we've traveled in as well, they're not doing any road repair in rural areas. Why? Because we're not going to need to access those roads to properties that are going to be unavailable to us to access. This is the plan. This is being stealthily done. All our road gas tax money has been stolen. And now they're saying that they want to increase revenue again so that they can continue to improve our roadway. That's all misinformation. They're lying. We're under a corporate structure. This is revenue-based. They're stealing from us, and they're stealing our minds. So I would urge you to first Understand that the weaponized weather events have been happening for a very long time. Understand that we're under a massive economic warfare attack as well through these plans. And also understand there are going to be many people in your community talking about things that are unfamiliar to you, such as hearing voice to skull in their heads, voices in their heads, such as not being able to sleep well at night, feeling like they're being burned, and they are, and feeling like there are physical assaults upon their bodies, feeling as though they're being gang stalked because they're seeing people follow them. This is a reality. This is happening in every single city, in every single country across the globe. This is the new form of warfare in our cities. Now, I appreciate that Dr. Ed introduced me originally, and I know that we would like to talk about mind control and the degrees in which mind control is occurring in our neighborhoods and in our communities and globally to really everybody, and what that means with artificial intelligence and the reality to literally have a global brain. In other words, to feed the global thoughts and emotions into a global brain. Because Dr. Ed, when we went recently to a program that Al Gore put on, he introduced his new book called The Future. And he talked about the global brain and how technologies were advancing faster than in any time in history. And we were going to literally become a global brain.
Well, Deborah, you've certainly given us an enormous amount of information and well documented. And so I guess, I would have to ask you at this point, when are you going to give us the bad news?
Well, Dr. Ed, I guess it really does appear that there's quite a bit of bad news. It depends on how you look at it. What I have found, quite frankly, is the more that you start to understand your reality and getting out of the fairy tale that you've been living in, the illusion, the more empowered people are feeling. And then you realize the level that you must engage, and we must not consent. And we must start with the simplest things that we can do, and that is not consent with these in-home energy audits. We must not consent to a variety of requirements and statutes that your cities are going to start to impose upon you. These are all statutory corporate rules and regulations. They do not apply to us. They told us over and over again in their documents that their success is based on our consenting. And we're consenting because we have been enslaved by lack of knowledge. This was all planned. We're sitting here today because we as human beings are on the precipice of annihilation. And unless we engage, unless we wake up, turn off the sports channels, start looking at reality, start having meetings within your communities, looking at some of the information that we talk about on stopthecrime.net and other sites as well, and read some of this. In fact, the Silent Weapons Quiet Wars document is up on YouTube being read to you so that people don't even have to read. But they literally, we found on the U.S. Department of Energy website, and again, people can see this on stopthecrime.net under the Energy Action Plan, where they talk about the real goal of energy use. They say it's not to use any energy at all. It's learning to live in a new reality, adjusting our behavior. This is the Hunger Games. This is really the Hunger Games.
Well, do we want to talk about mind control at this point, or should we take a break?
Well, I think that we should talk about mind control.
Okay.
They're not taking any breaks.
So, will you let us talk about mind control?
Well, I think
They said
that
we can.
we can.
Yes,
okay, so
okay.
you're having subliminal messaging occurring right now,
Well, who
voice to
knows?
skull. But yeah, let's do, because I certainly know many people that are experienced, and as soon as they locate,
All of us soon. if
well,
they get their
absolutely.
way.
Well,
Yeah,
through
yeah.
the aerosol, they will be dispersing aerosol chipping into us through the nanotechnology. But at this moment, many people have been chipped, and they've been identified, and they've been tracked and monitored as a result of their chipping.
Brave New World. Well, I'm holding a book here by Robert Duncan, Project Soul Catcher, which talks about this technology of mind control, or mind swaying, maybe another way of putting it, because it's not exactly like they're flying an airplane most of the time, but I think people are just kind of pushed one way or another. And online, there's another source by Robert Duncan, which is The Matrix Deciphered. You can find that online.
We actually have it posted under the mind control link of stopthecrime.net. That's the Matrix Deciphered by Robert Duncan. People can access it and download it there as well.
Now, you had something you were going to tell me about mind control, and you said that Robert Duncan is under mind control?
Well, he admits that in his book called The Matrix Deciphered, that he also is apologizing to the world for being one that was duped into creating technologies that have caused the abilities that are now being advanced through technologies. He's apologized. He has also said he's working on technologies to help reverse it. But we see it just increasing. I don't see it backing off at all. I'm being told that there are many people that are working to help reverse what we're living in right now. But quite frankly, with the deployment of all of the technologies to the degree that they have them, what is your sense of our future, Dr. Ed?
Well, we have to take hold of it and make it what we want. Otherwise, it's not going to be anything we can tolerate. I think that the new facilities, that there's great talk of collecting data, of all phone calls, any Little League score, or shopping list. I think that the facilities that they're building, like the Buffalo in Utah.
Oh, the NSA.
They say that they're data collection. They infer that, but they're really I think mind control stations, because this is highly developed technology, and has been with us way longer than we think. Probably more than close to 60 years.
Well, that's true. In fact, I was doing some research out of Pennsylvania, and I came across the rebuilding of future cities. And I have that posted again on the Climate Action Plan link of stopthecrime.net. They've since taken it down, but you can get it there. We captured it. What we found, Dr. Ed, is that all future cities are going to have large facilities for computers. And they've said that they need a very high, they need an ability to access electricity and water. And what we see now is, of course, the creation of the idea of scarcity with us, where they're telling us get off grid as best you can, although it's illegal to be off grid. People that are off grid are having their homes red tagged. We see that in the Antelope Valley. There was a woman in Florida recently who literally was told her house was being condemned because she did not want to connect to any resources. But what we find is that the curious aspect of why do they want us off of the grid, the frequency, the network, the utility network. Certainly some have speculated that they want all of that frequency because it's all weaponized. They've got the dirty electricity. Right now we've discovered too that they've increased the height of the telephone poles, the utility poles. They're transitioning from the wood poles that we've all been familiar with to 90-foot steel poles. They say the reason that they're increasing the pole height, specifically around schools and neighborhoods, is to distance the EMF, electromagnetic frequencies, from us. We know that that's not real. We know that they're not doing anything to serve us. In fact, Sam Milham recently said that heightening the poles will allow greater dirty electricity expansion. So what we have is we're being really cooked overhead with all the heavy metals in the chemtrailing program, all the dirty frequencies now in our house wires, in the ground, and all of the cell phone towers and the antennas, all of the wireless that we have. In fact, Honeywell, who manufactures thermostats for homes, is saying part of the reducing of your greenhouse gas emissions is to purchase new Honeywell thermostats. These have all Trojan horse backdoor traps built into them.
Yes, let's take a look at this poster here. Can you get up there? We're going to take a look at this this face. Turn it around here. What do you suppose is wrong with Bill Casey? Why would he be what he is? Why would he want to? Why would he want the American public to everything that we believe to be false? What is wrong with him, and what is wrong with all of the other bullshit merchants out there and petty tyrant, that correct, talked about these people or at least some of them as being para-homo sapiens. They're not really human. They're not really physically human. But I know that a lot of the, or most perhaps, of the people who are doing this stuff are probably physiologically Homo sapiens, but they're acting like they're not Homo sapiens. They're not acting like they're behaving without empathy and without ethics, and certainly they're addicted to the lie.
Well, you know, we also see that reality, though, in the corporate structure, right, because the corporate structure is void of recognizing life. And so we have a machine that has been built by those in power, whoever you want and however you want to consider the identity of those in power. I like to think of it as far as the banking system and the families that have all the wealth on the face of the planet. There are many other aspects to identifying that, but we know that we have people that are psychopaths and sociopaths that are at the helm of our ship, our spaceship Earth, and we're headed into the rocks because again. They do believe now that they have the ability to live forever. And they believe that they can do away with humans and literally turn us into cyborgs, which is what they're working on now. This is why we have poisonous food supplies. This is why we have poison and neurotoxins in the water supply and chemtrailing. This is why we're getting GMO despite our opposition to all of these things. These things are legal. Now think about that. These things are legal. All the poisons and toxins are legal. Why? Because we have a corporate structure.
Well, they're not really legal in terms of the Constitution. They're legal in terms of these statutes, right, well, that are designed to destroy it.
Well, we don't have a Constitution now. We were told in 1933 in the United States, as long as we remain in a perpetual state of national emergency, the Constitution has been put aside. Now, I know there are many people that still believe that we can resurrect the Constitution. I would like to, of course, see that for my grandchildren and everyone. But sadly, the structure's not there. There's no framework for the Constitution to rest upon at this point, because when you look at the facts, we don't have state or federal governments. We don't have a judiciary system that serves us. They serve the corporate structure. It's been methodically, incrementally designed to imprison us. So we're at a point right now where we simply cannot consent. I don't see any other way around the dilemma that we all face and the reality that we're really living in other than to not consent. And that means to not consent to the corporate statutes. That's what this means. So we have many recommendations. There have been hundreds of people across the United States that have been working on ways in which you cannot consent. It doesn't mean that you become belligerent. It doesn't mean that you have to go outside of your comfort zone to ask a corporate employee to fill out these forms. But the forms are basically about showing you that you've agreed to these corporate statutes. You want to see your wet ink signature that you've agreed, because you cannot be held responsible for policies that, first of all, you know nothing about, and second of all, you never agreed to. And I would like to think it's as simple as what you're hearing me say, but we've got to stop consenting to a corporate structure. We have got people in town councils, in county board of supervisors that don't understand the structure that they're in. They don't realize that they're working for a corporation when their cities and towns are incorporated. They somehow or another think that they're incorporated so that they can have liability benefit, tax write-off benefit. They don't realize that they're incorporated to do business, and they're doing business by creating increased revenue on all of us, and that's what's happening. So I look at this monster out of control. I look at the mind control. I look at all of the levels, as Kennedy warned us.
What's behind the corporate structure? What's controlling the corporate structure?
Well, of course, we can look at how it was stealthily put into place when we look at the Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars document. They talk about the bankers. There are many levels of this conversation, as you're well aware of, Dr. Ed, and I would rather keep people to the reality that we have paperwork in our cities right now that you can go online, you can go to your building department or your planning department. You can get copies of these climate action plans or these sustainability plans. We have enough of, I see enough of a problem in just getting people to understand that level of reality. That's why we have different links on stopthecrime.net for different levels of opportunity for people that have already assimilated the documentation, such as reading the Silent Weapons Quiet Wars document, the report from Iron Mountain, taking a look at the other source documents we have on the source document page, and then getting in to the levels of mind control. Now, I want to say, Dr. Ed, we have spent quite a bit of time recently interviewing runners that are running from the chips and the tracking and the torture that they're being subjected to on a daily basis by ground teams. Once these people are located as a result of their chips, then ground teams come in, and they use cell phones. Literally, our bodies, their bodies have been turned into a cell phone where these chips can be called by a cell phone, and they experience horrific pain, headaches, gut-wrenching nausea. They can be dropped to the ground. They can wake up a few hours later on a bed and having had been sexually assaulted, for example.
So these gang stalking teams are basically psychopaths running around using a very advanced technology.
Well,
Wouldn't that be what it is?
Well, I'm understanding that there's lots of people that want to make a buck, and that they can be college students, they can be a sheriff and police, military, all levels, white supremacists, etc. And many of them are told that that person has done something, and that has caused the assaults upon them. Many people are getting drugs as payment for stalking. A lot of people, yes, are sociopaths and psychopaths, and they love to torture people.
Well, how did they get that way? How did a society that was functioning pretty well, Leave It to Beaver or whatever, the popsicle index of Catherine Austin Fitts, how did we deteriorate so far, so fast?
Well, we have as former CIA director told us, we have a level of evil amongst our in our midst that we can't see. We don't understand it. But it is safe. We know that children are abducted and murdered as a result of being sacrificed for these ritual.
There's another aspect of the mind control. Remember the Sandy Hook thing, in which apparently nobody was killed. There was a big show with people walking around and paramedics, and the coroner said he was leaving the bodies there overnight. I mean, can you imagine how people would struggle to save a classroom of children, and you know, real paramedics, real people, and they wouldn't just walk around, and they wouldn't leave the bodies there overnight, and that a lot of I guess a lot of real estate had changed hands at a zero price before this, so it looked like an entire community had somehow been horribly turned and contaminated. And I have to think that probably the electronic mind control may have had something to do with that, and that the electronic mind control is functioning at various levels on everyone. I mean, do you think that there's any chance that, let's say, the highest level, the president, the cabinet, all kinds of people like that, are exempt from electronic mind control?
Oh, absolutely not. In fact, I think that most of the power brokers globally are already under massive mind control. Certainly, people that are in a level of authority would be directly assaulted. In fact, I know that people have done an antenna search of Washington, D.C., and they're heavily infiltrated with microwaves. That has been observed. In fact, back even in the 70s, there was a concern with all the dogs and all the police that were constantly around the Capitol when Congress was in session, etc. And people were feeling nervous and scared even back then. And we know that the Russians directed energy weapons on Medford, Oregon in the early 70s and caused, within about a 48-hour period of time, 24 suicides. They were testing the degree of the influence of frequencies on our brains. So absolutely, when we look at Sandy Hook, another interesting thing is Sandy Hook was and is considered a transition town. Transition town. You can type in and see if your city is considered a transition town. I know that here, Ed, in Northern California, there are a number of cities that are transition towns. Well, they tell us that transition means that we're prepared to come out of any type of emotional or weather type of chaos. And so really what they're doing is they've got us in this matrix, this virtual reality, where they're pounding us with weaponized weather, they're using weaponized insects and bugs. We recently found out here in Northern California that there's a mosquito that has been identified to be a carrier of yellow fever and dengue fever. And there's no antidote. There's no poisonous pharmaceutical toxin that can help you out of the weaponized bite of this mosquito. But I found it interesting because in some of the recent meetings that we've been attending about the water shortage and the idea that we have to catch it, stop it, catch it, and sink it. I think I got that right. In other words, when it rains, we have to contain the water. They want us to have divots in our property, etc. And yet the vector control is saying don't store water on your property. These mosquitoes have been identified in our area, and they will cause arthritic conditions, sleeplessness, And possible capillary bleed out and people will die, depending on the level of your immune system.
Well, who's doing this? Why are they doing it? What is the motivation here?
They're reducing the population, and they're having fun, and they're enjoying it.
Well, so the people who put on smart meters enjoy it, doing it?
I think that they have a level of employees that are unaware. They're compartmentalized. They really are unaware what the meters are doing. And they're being told that people that oppose these things are nut jobs.
Well, and compartmentalization is a big thing, and of course it's not limited to blue-collar people, but it's probably most prominent and destructive in universities and government and what's passing for government in the intellectual spheres where people are incredibly isolated and censor themselves or are censored intensely. So it's just not somebody installing a smart meter. It's the allegedly upper levels that are incredibly isolated.
Well, that's absolutely true, and it's a maze, and that's why we have so many links on StopTheCrime.net for people to research the documentation that we have. We encourage everyone to get the word out. I know that many people are putting magnet signs on their vehicles to get the information out. We're the media. This is it. This is it. You've got to spread this information far and wide, get it out as far as you possibly can. Go to the source documents that you've heard us speak about. Confirm this for yourselves. I can tell you initially I did not know what I did not know. And I can say that every single day we seem to be plummeting further in to this insanity. And it certainly has seemed to speed up. I don't know if it's because more and more people are becoming aware, but please, I would urge everyone go to StopTheCrime.net and become informed and educated.